Dogman versus Dogman. Battle in the snow. Dear Scary Stories NYC. I'm going to tell you a story about the time my friend and I saw two big black dogmen fighting each other mano a mano in the aftermath of the snowstorm of the century in March of 1997. We were living in Hurley, Wisconsin, which is right on the border with that northern bit of Michigan that is really part of mainland Wisconsin. In fact, Hurley is kind of part of the larger town Ironwood, which is on the other side of the border in Michigan. Ironwood features the world's largest statue of a Native American. So they have a genuine landmark in their town, and in those days that made some of them think they were better than us. Anyway, this isn't a story about Ironwood or their giant statue. This is a story about the western edge of Hurley and two genuine real-life giants that I got to see with my own eyes. When the storm came and left 2 feet of snow, me and my best friend Charlie, our entire schedule canceled by the weather, set out into the cold whiteness to have ourselves an adventure. Little did we dream that we'd get to set our sights upon a fight between two genuine upright walking canines, or what we here locally call the Wisconsin werewolf. I don't think they are werewolves, though. I didn't before witnessing what we saw, and I especially don't feel that way any longer. They stand like us, and we naturally find that frightening, so they get the reputation of being supernatural. I think these are animals, predators like bear or cougar, but more intelligent and capable of doing more things. Dogmen have paws that serve as hands in that they can pick things up and manipulate objects. Having that ability magnifies his intelligence because he can make use of his ideas and turn them into actions. Like, you can come up with the idea for creating fire all you want, but if you don't have a thumb to grip stones and sticks and rub them all together, then the knowledge is not going to take you very far. Now, just because I don't think these are magical creatures, and I don't think they're men transformed into werewolves or anything, that doesn't mean I'm not scared of them. They're more frightening to me than any other animal, and I can give you a million reasons why, without ever really feeling like I'm hitting the nail on the head. It's not that they're tall. It's not that they're strong. It's not their intelligence. It's not their extreme violence. I don't think it's their intense speed or their sheer viciousness. It isn't even the combination of these qualities. I think it's the feeling I got when watching those two behemoths battling in the snow, that there was so much more about these creatures than was meeting our eyes. This was something fully illuminated and on display that nevertheless was an absolute and complete mystery to both of us. I know I probably just contradicted myself several times over, but that's kind of my point. The dogman itself, as a species, feels self-contradictory. It really does feel like a paranormal experience to witness or encounter a dogman, so I can't blame people for assuming the creature couldn't be natural. At any rate, we didn't witness either creature doing anything that could be labeled paranormal. So I'm just going to go ahead and tell the rest of this, assuming that we all agree that these are animals we're talking about, not shamans or aliens or beings from another dimension. Some dogman sightings might be best explained in those ways, I admit, but I don't believe that ours was that kind of an incident. Now, I have not been back to Hurley since I think 2007, so I don't know what it's like now, but back then, most of the people in town lived over by the eastern border with Michigan. If you traveled westward, you got to see a lot of nice grass and pretty trees. So Charlie and I walked west, starting off on Division Street and heading in the direction of Orva. The thing about the western side of Hurley is that it has all these dirt paths, plus a big clear cut that the high power lines run through. So it could get you a bit lost even when you could see where you were walking, which we couldn't. Once the houses were far enough behind us, it was hard to tell where we even were anymore. Road, grass, wherever. It all looked like the North Pole on that day. The sky was also very generic. There was cloud cover, which kept it from getting too bright, but the diffusion of the sunlight through the atmosphere made it hard to tell where it was even coming from. Everything was lit in a dull but equal fashion. I brought a small toy compass with me and remembered that we had to get east to get home. Neither of us had GPS. In fact, we didn't have cell phones either. This was 1997, and I did know some kids' parents who had phones, but neither Charlie nor I had one. I don't remember if cell phones even took pictures in 1997 yet, so it might not have mattered if we did have them. I don't think they were smartphones yet by that point, and they definitely did not have GPS or maps or anything of that nature. So I'm really not sure where we were when we came upon the scene of the two cryptids. I think we might have still been in Hurley, but the zoning is extra weird over there. You're in Hurley, then you walk 10 feet and you're in Kimball. Half a block later, you're technically back in Hurley. So even on a summer day, I don't know which town I'm even in when I'm over there. Cover it all with snow, and then it's just impossible to know where you are. The one thing I can tell you is that there were trees behind the two great beasts as we saw them tumble out onto the snow. Both Charlie and I said, "Whoa," because our heroes in those days were Bill and Ted. We stopped what we were doing and we watched. Initially, I thought I was seeing large animals playing as the snow flew all around them and obscured the image from our perspective. But when both creatures managed to get back on their feet, they started slugging it out, beating on each other like MMA fighters or something. I definitely saw punches being thrown, which implies that the creatures were able to ball their paws or hands up into fists. It looked to me like they were hitting each other with knuckles, and knuckles are kind of a human thing to hit someone with. As the snow settled, we could occasionally get a clear view for a second or two, before some new violence filled the air with ice and snow all over again. In those glimpses, we saw creatures that we both thought were part of local legend, but not part of reality. Yet there they were. Two very large, literally bear-sized canines, each of them as black as night, standing up on clearly powerful hind legs, wailing on each other using their front legs, or I suppose I should call them arms. They sure look like arms to me. Both creatures stood up bipedally, yet their heads sure look like some kind of a black dog. At the time I was thinking that maybe this was a fight between brothers, as they initially looked so much like each other to me. But Charlie had keener eyes. He pointed out to me that they in fact had a number of differences between each other in terms of their appearance. One of them, he pointed out, had a tail. It was a short tail, but a bushy one. I did not see any tail at all on the other creature. That one, the tail-free Dogman, he had a kind of a mane, with silver-tipped longer fur framing his face and head. No such feature appeared on the one with the tail. These may seem like minor differences, but I would think this made them different enough that they probably would not have been closely related. In other words, we were not watching two brothers playing in the snow. We were witnessing a genuine turf battle, with the battlers being honest-to-Christmas Dogman, and the turf being Hurley, Wisconsin, for whatever reason. What was the point of this battle? There was nothing around but snow and trees. It isn't like the winner got free barbecue. I couldn't quite understand the point of the hostility, but it seemed quite real. There was no love lost between these two. That was clear. What was not clear was which creature would win. They seemed very evenly matched, and they were both quite desperate to do the other one in. And I saw lots of dirty moves on both sides, and I saw each of them sneak in little bites on the other. When the one with the tail slipped in the snow, the other one was on top of him, taking advantage of the situation by stomping on his sensitive areas while he was down. It was an ugly scene, but one that we two young men found uproariously entertaining. This was a giant feral UFC death match, basically. I mean, I don't think I was into that kind of fighting yet. I don't even remember if it existed yet, but there was already a market for it clearly, and me and Charlie were the key demographic. If I could have put this fight between the two big animals on pay-per-view television, I could have made a bundle of cash. So we both guessed that the dogmen themselves were around 12 to 14 feet tall, but it was a bit harder to judge size under those circumstances. They weren't standing right next to anything that we knew the size of, and their feet were sunk into a whole mess of snow. They were giants compared to us, and their bodies' similarity in shape to humans accentuated the difference in our sizes. I've since this time heard and read about other people talking about Dogman having turf battles. The descriptions involve a lot of biting and scratching. This wasn't really so in our case. Maybe it's because we were watching heavyweights battle. But there was only biting in the clinches. Neither creature led with his teeth, to put it in Charlie's words. They fought very much like men, each trying to bludgeon and pummel the other into non-existence. Besides the punching and slapping, I saw shoving, headbutting, and tackling, in addition to all manner of different kinds of kicks to various parts of either body. They looked like chaos martial artists, if that makes any sense. There was a beauty to the intensity of their fighting, but they also never seemed to pull the same move twice, and the fighting grew increasingly frenetic. These creatures never seemed to get tired. Possibly it was fear of the other one ending its life that kept them going, but it looked more like they just hated each other so intensely that they wouldn't allow themselves to get weary before their opponent had. There was a point where the two were hugging each other, struggling for dominance. Eventually, the one with the tail stepped on unsure ground, and his foot gave way. That led to the two of them tumbling to the ground together, neither willing to loosen his death grip on the other. It was not until that point that I noticed the elevation of the hill they were standing on. I had been perceiving the ground as far more level than it turned out it was. The dogmen were up higher on this hill than we realized. And when they came rolling down, they came rolling directly toward me and my buddy Charlie. That was the moment when this situation changed. That was when it stopped being us watching something interesting off in the distance, you know? That was the point when the story over there became our story over here. It was like the TV show turned into virtual reality, and then the virtual reality became the real reality. Charlie and I stood there, looking at each other, and then back to the two dogmen, turning into a giant snowball rolling down the hill, seemingly faster every second. And we did that stupid thing that people always do in movies. Like if Godzilla's coming in your direction, don't run away from him, because then he continues to chase you. Why not move to the left or the right, and just allow him to pass? I always wondered why people did that, but I think now I sorta know. We were panicked. We hadn't expected to be in this situation, and we had not thought about it beforehand. If something was coming toward us that was gonna squash us, we just instinctively ran directly away, remaining in the path of the two beasts, rolling and sliding faster and faster in our direction. I have no idea where on the map of Hurley we were, other than the west side. I don't know if we were on a road or a field or some other option, as the snow was too thick and too uniform in every direction. All I know is that when the creatures rolled over us, it felt like all the air was suddenly squeezed out of my lungs as the world went black. People have asked me what it feels like to be crushed down into the snow by two very large and heavy dogmen, and in return I asked them if they've ever been in a very crowded elevator. Everybody's been in a crowded elevator at one point or another, so they invariably say yes. Then I tell them, well, it was nothing at all like being in a crowded elevator. It was like being crushed by an impossibly heavy rolling object in the snow. It was like being steamrollered, except the 2 feet of snow between us and the ground is what allowed all our bones not to be crushed. It's what allowed us to get out of this situation with only a few bad cuts and bruises. Of course, when I woke up in the hospital, I woke up in a state of panic, wondering how badly I'd been injured, and if my buddy Charlie was even still with us. I did not immediately remember the beasts rolling down the hill at us, but I was in some pretty bad pain all over whenever I tried to move even a little bit. They were mainly surface wounds, though. I felt really bad for a few days, and it hurt to be awake for a couple weeks afterward, but all things considered, I got off really lucky. Charlie, similarly, was not done in by the incident, although he did sustain a broken leg. Now, when the weather is about to change, he talks like an old sailor about how he can feel the storm coming in his bones, stuff like that. It turns out that both of us were saved by a very nice but very eccentric woman named Laura, who stayed at the hospital to talk to us after we woke up. She was so friendly that I'm kind of surprised we didn't get her address or phone number, or some way to stay in touch. Back in those days, I didn't carry a cell, but I did carry a little address book, an old school paper book, and I'd write in it, with a pen, when I got people's phone numbers or info. But I never took down this lady's details, so I don't even know if she lived in town or where. Her story was similar to ours, except she was out specifically looking for the Dogman when she came upon the scene, just as we were barreled over and imprinted into that snow. She claims that the Dogman come out after snowstorms. Laura said that when she found me, I was face down deep in the snow and unconscious. I might have suffocated, but she was able to turn me over onto my back. Realizing there was nothing more she could do to help either one of us alone, she ran to her home and called the authorities. Then she and her husband went to the closest spot to the incident where roads had been cleared. Then they led the EMS workers through the snow to where our unconscious bodies lay at the bottom of that snowy hillside. I mean, those two people are heroes, but I don't even have their last name to thank them. Laura and her husband are the only reasons I'm even able to write this email to you today. We'd have probably been discovered when the snow thawed out in spring if she hadn't been there to rescue us. The other reason I regret not keeping in touch with Laura was that she told us that her passion was researching the Dogman. Of course, in the years since this event, Charlie and I have only become more and more interested in these creatures and their habits. Once you get shoved into the snow by a couple of giant rolling dogmen, you find yourself wishing you could understand these creatures better. I mean, they almost killed me, and that makes me curious about them. Laura did tell us that the Dogmen, after crushing us, seemed to be continuing their fight, in the form of the one with the tail chasing the other one in a generally southern direction. Sounds like the one with the tail won the fight. Laura was unhappy about having to let them go unfollowed, as she of course was intensely curious where they would end up next, but Charlie and I were not going to make it if she didn't give us top priority. We both owe her so much. All I can say is, if she is still alive, I hope she can hear this, and I hope she knows how grateful we both are to have had over 25 years of life that we've lived since this all happened. Our stories might have both ended on that day if it were not for her, and we can't ever thank her enough. And that's the story of the time my friend Charlie and I witnessed Dogman versus Dogman battle in the snow. Braden Russell, man of muscle, he likes the Dogman tales. Braden Russell, man of muscle, his donations never fail. Please join me in thanking Braden Russell for being today's executive producer and making this episode possible. Immediately after uploading this video, I'm going to be working on some secret, uncensored Dogman stories that Braden Russell will get to watch. Will you? Only if you become a PayPal Club member at peterbernard.com or a channel member here at YouTube. Here comes our friend, international TV spokesmongrel Henry Lee Dogman, to fill in the rest of the deets. Hank? Thanks, Biggie, and thanks to all of you for watching this far. If you liked it, please click like. If you'd like to see more of our work, please subscribe. And also click that bell icon if you'd like to be notified when we put out a new episode. To become an executive producer, you can donate to us through the thanks button under each of our videos or through our paypal.me/PeterBernard209 page. To receive cool perks like secret uncensored Dogman episodes far too wild to ever run on this channel, you can become a YouTube channel member by clicking the join button, or join our PayPal subscribers club at peterbernard.com. Joining either at the $3 a month level or above gets you access to our over 25 hours of secret uncensored Dogman stories available nowhere else. Do you have a scary story about Dogman or some other kind of high strangeness that happened to you? Let us know by emailing us at scarystoriesnyc@gmail.com or by leaving us a voicemail message at 804-LA-SCARY. You may need to call back on that one. It cuts off after, I think, 3 minutes. And if you don't want to do any of that stuff, thank you for simply watching to the end. Good night, and have a scary tomorrow.
Come back for more scary stories.